In just a handful of days, West Asia has been thrown into a massive conflict that's shaking the entire world. What started with a single, incredibly precise strike has exploded into a regional war with consequences we're only just beginning to see. So let's get into a status report on where things stand right now. It really did all begin with one attack. But that single event was like lighting a match in a powder keg. And now the entire region is on fire. From the Gulf all the way to the Mediterranean, pretty much nobody is untouched by this. The last few days have just been an absolute whirlwind of escalation. So day one, bam, the strike that changed everything. By day two, Iran's furious retaliation was already in full swing. And now here on day three, we're all living with the fallout, a crisis that's economic, political, and, deeply human. Let's dig into exactly how we got here.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, the spark itself. And we have to be clear, this wasn't just any airstrike. This was what's known as a decapitation strike, and it was designed to do exactly what it sounds like: take out the entire head of the Iranian regime in one single swift blow. I mean, the sheer ambition of this operation is just staggering. The target wasn't just the supreme leader, Khamenei. The intelligence suggested he was having a meeting with his entire top command, which presented what the planners must have seen as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to just wipe out the whole power structure at once. And the strike was devastatingly effective. Along with Khamenei, Iran lost its defense minister, the head of its armed forces, the chief of the really powerful Revolutionary Guard, and even members of Khamenei's own family. In the span of a minute, the most important men in Iran were just gone. And the confirmation? Well, it didn't come from Tehran. Nope. It came directly from the White House. President Trump himself announced the death, framing the strike as a crucial security measure against a leader he called one of the most evil people in history. But here's the thing. The Iranian regime, while it was definitely staggered, it didn't collapse. Oh no. Instead, it lashed out with a fury that has now completely engulfed the region, unleashing a massive multi-front retaliation. Iran's response has been, relentless. For 3 straight days now, it has just unleashed wave after wave of ballistic missiles and drones, turning this from a targeted strike into a regional war of attrition. And this really gives you a sense of the sheer geographic scale of what's happening. Iran isn't just targeting Israel or U.S. bases. It is hitting the Gulf states and hitting them hard. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, essentially punishing America's allies for hosting U.S. forces. In Dubai, a city that was basically a symbol of stability and calm, that calm has been shattered. The iconic Burj Al Arab Hotel was hit, fires broke out at other high-rises, and the world's busiest international airport was targeted. It sent absolute shockwaves through that global hub. Over in Saudi Arabia, Iran struck right at the heart of the global economy. Drones targeted the massive Ras Tanura oil refinery, one of the largest in the world, by the way, causing a huge fire and stoking major fears about energy supplies. In Kuwait, U.S. military assets were hit directly. Iran flat out confirmed it targeted the Ali al Salem airbase, and while the U.S. attributed the crash of several aircraft to friendly fire, the damage was done. We also saw smoke billowing from the U.S. Embassy compound, which triggered a security alert. And Israel, of course, was a primary target. Dozens of missiles and drones just rained down. And while their air defenses did intercept a lot of them, some still got through, damaging about 40 buildings in Tel Aviv and forcing millions of people into shelters. And then, almost immediately, a second front opened up in the north. Iran's proxy, Hezbollah, jumped into the fray, launching a barrage of missiles from Lebanon into Israel. Israel responded forcefully, striking nearly 70 Hezbollah targets across Beirut and southern Lebanon. And just like that, another nation was pulled directly into the war. So the battlefield is just one piece of this story. The fallout from these attacks has triggered what is now a truly global crisis. And it's affecting everything from the price of gas to your travel plans. The economic shock was immediate. I mean, within minutes of markets opening after the strike, Brent crude oil prices shot up by more than 13%. That is one of the biggest single-day jumps we've seen in years, and it was driven by pure panic. And that panic is focused right here, the Strait of Hormuz. Think about this. 20% of the world's seaborne oil passes through this tiny little choke point.
Iran has threatened to shut it down, which would choke global energy supplies and could send prices soaring to over $150 a barrel. But the cost, of course, isn't just economic. It's being measured in lives. As of day 4, the casualty figures are just grim. Over 700 people have been reported killed in Iran from the strikes. But the retaliation has been deadly too, with civilians and service members killed in Israel, the UAE, and among U.S. forces.
And behind all these numbers is just profound human fear. This quote from a resident in Dubai really captures the terror that ordinary people are feeling. People now living under the threat of missile and drone attacks in cities they had always considered safe.
To put this into perspective, this is the biggest disruption to global air travel since the COVID pandemic. The airspace over much of West Asia is effectively a no-fly zone. Major hubs like Dubai and Doha have ground to a halt, leaving thousands of passengers stranded and basically severing key arteries of global travel.
So all of this brings us to the most urgent question of all. What happens now? With both sides so dug in, it really looks like we're entering a dangerous new phase, a war of attrition. In Iran, the most immediate issue is this massive power vacuum. With Khamenei and his whole command structure just gone, who is actually in charge? An interim council has apparently been formed, but the real danger here is the internal power struggle that could erupt. That could empower hardliners and make any kind of diplomatic off-ramp nearly impossible. And then on the U.S. side, there's also a lot of uncertainty. What's the ultimate goal here? President Trump laid out a pretty broad mission, but then Secretary of State Rubio seemed to narrow the focus. Now, this really matters, because without a clear, unified endgame, there's a serious risk of miscalculation. It creates confusion for allies and maybe even an opening for adversaries to exploit. And so, this is where we're left. A brutal war of attrition has begun. Iran is inflicting real pain on U.S. allies, hoping to pressure Washington to back down. The U.S. and Israel are inflicting massive damage on Iran, hoping the regime itself will crack. And the terrifying question that hangs over all of this is, who's going to blink first?